Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran and the TBC beta is officially here. Better check your emails and your BNet if you're excited for this brand new classic experience as the Burning Crusades returns. And it's finally here for testing, not an actual fake out by Blizzard, not a failed launch, but a real launch of the beta. And this channel was lucky enough to get in. I very much enjoyed testing out Shadowlands for the alpha and the beta and giving in my input on everything that was going on in TBC. I am currently excited to actually play it for myself. Not really sure if I'll make it a big central point of the channel at any point, but currently I do have personal interest in checking out TBC, especially with friends and guildies. In this video, I want to showcase you guys what the beta is looking like right now. How does it work? What is the character boost looking like right now? What is there to test? And what content is available currently on the beta in this very first week's update? First things first, this is a boosted character at level 58. Right now on the Burning Crusades beta, you can boost a character on level 58 and then start out with very basic gear. This doesn't seem like any kind of gear that you can get from quests or from a vendor. It just seems like baseline gear for you to get started with your character, to test questing and test a variety of different content. You start out with a very base build. For a rogue, for example, you start out with a dagger, a thrown weapon, and some very minor green pieces. However, every character that you create has an Outlands survival kit full of food, reagents for your character, different pieces of gear to equip. So for a rogue, if I want to try swords or daggers or a mix of both, whether I'm playing combat, assassination, or a subtlety build, I can switch it around. I could try different poisons in my main hand and offhand and have reagents for vanishing powder and such, as well as a mount to traverse the Burning Crusades. Since this is the TBC classic experience, you do get the talent builds of TBC, as in mutilate for assassination rogues and a couple different changes for combat rogues like surprise attack. And of course, in the subtlety tree, we have Shadow Step, which we on Shadowlands take for granted, but in TBC, it's a pretty major impactful ability. You also get a variety of different class changes. As you level and quest through the Burning Crusade expansion, you unlock different abilities for you to learn from your class vendor. But until then, at 58, you have majority of the same abilities as classic, plus or minus adjustments for the expansion, as Blizzard did do quite a bit of tuning for a variety of classes and even spec playstyles for the Burning Crusades, going off from the classic. And of course, you get to enter the massive green portal that takes you into the wondrous world of Outlands, with the Hellfire Peninsula greeting you as the very first zone. A very iconic zone to World of Warcraft, an uncharted new world that we'll get to play again in this expansion. Currently, the questing in TBC right now is locked to level 56. Blizzard is most likely going to raise this cap as you go on further, so until level 56 you have a set of zones that you can explore and set of quests you can do. Most likely Blizzard is going to allow players to explore and quest in more areas just to make sure all the quests are functioning properly and nothing is super buggy, none of the mobs and NPCs are doing way too much damage or too little damage, to make sure that it's as authentic of a classic experience as it can be. Maybe at some point Blizzard will even let us boost a character to level 70 to test some of the end game gear and end game abilities. But as of right now, that's just a speculation until Blizzard has a confirmation of what they're planning to do for further testing in TBC. As you know, the beta just begun and this is literally the first week of TBC testing. Let's quickly navigate to the character creation screen. One of the things I noticed off the bat is the lighting looks a little janky. However, I will say this, I never played the original BC, so maybe this is just how the lighting was from the get-go, but just looking at it just looks a little bit weird. The first thing you'll notice is the new races are added in here as well. You have the Blood Elves, and you have the Draenei, and you also have the original races there as well. Yes, the Blood Elves can be Paladins. As one of the biggest features of TBC, you'll find to be able to test out Blood Elf Paladin and a Draenei Shaman. Draenei, just like the Orcs and the Tauren and the Trolls, have a little bit of a weird lighting thing, but maybe that's just how the lighting was back in TBC. So far on the beta, one of the most fun things I've had to do is actually being able to make a bunch of characters of the same classes I have in Shadowlands and try now to see how they feel over on TBC. TBC is a perfect opportunity for many players to try something new, something different, and maybe even find a new potential main. So of course I'm testing out rogues, but I'm also taking a look at some of the other classes that I'm interested in, and I'm taking a lot of the feedback off of the specs and classes that I play currently on Shadowlands. Now, I do play a little bit of Rogue on Classic, but I never got him to max level, and the way the Rogues plays on TBC, at least at the early levels, is very familiar to that of Classic. And it's actually kind of familiar to that of Shadowlands. Sinister Strikes, Slice and Dices, the only thing that's missing is Roll the Bones, which I know some of you guys that are not a huge fan of the RNG ability are going to be happy about. If you're a Shadowlands player, one of the biggest differences you'll notice for rogues is your energy regen comes in chunks. Instead of having a passive, natural, smooth energy regen, it happens in intervals every few seconds. This makes for sometimes a little bit less smooth of a gameplay, but it does make you plan out your abilities a little bit more. Also, common points are stuck on enemies as the old school World of Warcraft design instead of traveling with you. So if you are a retail player trying out rogues, there are going to be quite a few things that are different. Next class I tried out was a Paladin, and in Shadowlands they are a builder-spender playstyle where you use abilities to build holy power and spend it on Templar's verdicts. In TBC they are completely different. You have a lot of different auras that can provide buffs to your groups. You have a variety of different buffs to empower your healers, melee, ranged. You even have these seals that you'll use judgments instead of a primer. Judgments will unleash the current seal that you have active to put up different debuffs or different damage and abilities from your character. So you can put up debuffs on enemies where you can get mana from attacking them or healing. You can do extra holy damage to enemies, and weaving those seals with judgments is kind of core to the gameplay. You do get wings at a way later time, but since this character is only 58, it's not really something I can test. Next class I tried is Enhancement Shaman as a Draenei, since Shamans are available for the Alliance, finally. And with the Shamans, it kind of feels familiar. The changes to Shadowlands Shaman is to make it more cooldown based, and you do end up being a little bit more cooldown reliant off of abilities. You will use things like Storm Strike, but Lava Lash isn't really in the game just yet, so you'll end up spending a lot of your fillers with Earth Shock. And Totems is everything for you. There's a variety of different totems to give healing, to give different buffs and debuffs to your enemies and allies. There's a lot of different ways to kind of build your shaman, and they're probably one of the most utilitarian classes that is required in every dungeon group and raid group. So definitely a class in my consideration if I do end up playing TBC, but they actually feel quite durable when it comes to pulling multiple enemies, and the damage they do is quite spiky. Warlock is another class I've been enjoying recently in Shadowlands, and it's just a hodgepodge of abilities over in TBC. You kind of feel like a Destro Warlock, Affliction Warlock, and a Demonology Warlock all at once, having access to Corruption, your Immolation, Drain Life, Drain Soul, even Drain Mana, and Shadow Bolt spam, while maintaining a Felguard. The Felguard doesn't have nearly as many abilities as Shadowlands. He kind of just is a pet that does good damage by himself, but having him hold aggro like he does on retail, it's a little bit more tricky than that. Definitely feels like a very powerful and extremely durable caster, and having a pet class just gives you that free damage that if you, let's say, run out of mana or in a bad situation, that pet can definitely get you out of tough situations. Last one I checked out was the Warrior, and this was definitely one of the weirder classes. The whole stancing thing between battle stance, defensive stance, and berserker stance is something that is not natural to me at all. There's probably a way that you can integrate macros in order to make that playstyle easier, but managing and maintaining all these different abilities based on the stances you're in and keeping up with all that can be quite difficult. I found it a little bit more difficult for me to level as a warrior in comparison to every other class I've tried so far, but I think it might be one of those classes that's just skill capped. The better you are as a player, the easier time you're going to have with it. So it might be a class that's challenging, and if you guys are looking for a challenge in the expansion, this could be the class to play as a solo leveler. Besides testing out classes to figure out your new main for TBC, or even exploring some of the leveling content to figure out the best routes in the future when the expansion finally goes live, you can also try dungeons and PvP. There's already been some world PvP happening in the center of Hellfire Peninsula, since there are some buffs you can gain based on who controls some of the flags down in the center, and players are constantly looking for a group finder when it comes to dungeons, trying to get a 5-man going. You can even copy your classic character that has gear into TBC right now if you want to have an easier time looking for groups, or even doing more damage than anybody who boosted a character at level 58, or if you simply just want to test out how that character feels in the future expansion with all the gear from previous classic raids. But that's going to be it for the video. Thank you guys so much for checking out. Let me know what you think about the TBC beta so far, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.